friends, Mary Muse here again, and today we are listening to compilations of Pink in the background. I felt it was kind of appropriate. But anyways, what I wanted to talk to you today about was unnecessary guilt and blame and taking responsibility. How many of us here are notorious for taking on a serving of blame or an unnecessary guilt that you didn't earn, or taking on responsibility that you weren't responsible for? I mean, I'm picturing like a Thanksgiving table here, and we're like, here, pass the biscuits, oh, pass the gravy. I'll have 2 servings of responsibility and just 1 spoonful of blame, please. That's what I'm picturing here, because I take it on, or I used to take it on, like it was going out of style. So I hope that by the end of this, I hope by the end of this that we'll be able to work all of that out. Stay tuned. Okay, so what did I used to blame myself for? I'm talking about not just like, oh, I'm sorry I threw a brick through your window. I've never done that. No, don't worry. But, but not things that you're actually entitled to having blame for. I'm talking about having blame for my parents' financial issues when I was in the 3rd grade. And we were doing fine. Like, there was no reason for anyone to worry, but I took it on to worry and feel guilty about my parents' financial issues that young. Okay, what's another one? To this day, I still do this. I will take responsibility for my partner's moods. If they are not having the most 10 out of 10 day, I feel like I'm failing. That I need to ensure that they have the most wonderful as time as possible. Yeah. And I know that makes no sense, and I still do it, and I still catch myself, and I'm like, Mary, bad. But that's what I do. And what's another one? Oh, okay. Not just like ruining a party of 12, which I didn't even ruin, but like I would take blame for ruining, catastrophizing a party of 75 because I forgot to pick up the extra napkins the host asked me to grab for her on the way to her house. When in reality, like when I looked back at it a couple weeks later, the party was bunk anyways. It had nothing to do with me. No amount of napkins that I could have brought would have ever made that any more of a less awkward get-together. But for some reason, I still was able to blame myself for it. So we're going to do a little sidebar here, go into a little different chapter of Mary's life. What song is this? Okay. I have had a collection of therapists in my life, one of which holds a very dear, dear place in my heart. Not necessarily because she was that good, but because she was that impressioning. This woman had years and years and years of service behind her back, and then I saw her for 3 years, and by around year 2, she tried convincing me that maybe the reason I'm so emotionally sensitive to everything is because I'm really an alien. Deadpan face. I'm really an alien from another world, and this is my first human experience on this earth, and so it's like I'm a raw nerve to everything. And she tried telling me, I'll make a video on my therapists, believe you me. But anyway, this broad did have some very valid points. One of them that really stuck with me, going back to the whole, like how we blame and take responsibility for ourselves for things that we shouldn't be taking blame or responsibility or guilt for. She told me, and I have it written down word for word, if the issue is not about me, and if the issue is not my fault, then it's not in my control. And for some of us, myself included, who possibly have issues with control, whether we didn't have enough control as a child, or whether control was taken away from us in domestic issues. For whatever reason we have control issues, that can be a very scary place. Not being able to put the reasoning, I'm going to stop saying blame for a second, not to put the reasoning for the negative effect, okay? Not being able to place that reasoning onto something, not to be able to logically define the variable that makes us, that answers the question, that solves the equation. Having that missing XY variable can be extremely scary. So just internally, we absorb the fault, we absorb the blame subconsciously, because that at least gives us an out. I must have done something, even if we don't know what we did, I must have done something, because this happened and I can't easily quickly point out a finger at someone or something. It must have been my fault and I had to have done something wrong, and I'm gonna beat the hell out of myself until I figure it out, even if I don't ever figure it out. And she also said, the crazy broad, she also said, and that being brought up, your parents, my parents, our grandparents, our kids, pretty much everyone in the last 100 years of modern medicine and modern science, okay? Being brought up in the Walt Disney fairyland, live happily ever after world, where good triumphs evil. When we awaken in our youth to realize that there is no fairness in this world, that bad guys do win sometimes, that it isn't a safe place, it feels safer to blame ourselves, because that was so terrifying, that evil must have sprung from ourselves, because the rest of the world was happy and joyful until one day I realized the tooth fairy doesn't exist anymore and all of the magic disappears in life. It's because I found the tooth fairy. That's my story. But it could be something as simple like that. It feels safer to blame myself than it does to have nothing to point fingers at, like I was mentioning earlier in my nerdy verbage mathematical talk. I hate math, but my dad's an engineer. I have to know some of it. So we're almost done. I know it's like 7 minutes and 52 seconds right now. We're almost done. I just wanted to go over some just basic statements for some myths and then some reality check-ins, okay? There's 3 myths and 4 realities, and it's pretty straightforward. Myth number 1, there is somebody who is responsible for everything. In every situation. No. The world is not black and white. The world is full of infinite shades of gray. Okay? So there is not somebody who is responsible for everything. And it can be a group of people responsible, not just one. Myth 2, things do not fail or go wrong by themselves. All problems and issues can be prevented by human diligence. No, they can't. We're humans. We're not perfect. We err. By default, that eliminates that sentence. Because we're not perfect. We're going to screw up. We're going to mix checking off bunker number 72A because we wanted to go fool around with our girlfriend on shift. I'm talking about military-based stuff. But, things go wrong by themselves. Turbines in what do you call water dams. Turbines that are constantly churning and churning. They get wear and tear. They fail. Okay, we have to come in and replace them. So that's a myth. The third and final myth: when things go wrong by themselves, then someone should have taken preventative measures to stop the things going wrong or preventing the problem that results from the failure. Sometimes shit happens. I'm sorry. I wish I could give you more of a solidified answer to life, but sometimes tornadoes come out of the blue and they destroy hundreds and hundreds of homes and displace tens and 20s of families, and tsunamis happen, war happens, miscommunication happens between intimate couples. Life is full of ups and downs. So I'm sorry, but you can't prevent everything. If you could prevent everything, life would be boring. Okay? So, reality 1 of 4. 1, to accept that nobody is particularly responsible for something can be rather scary, as it means that we have limited ability to control our environment. Making somebody responsible, whether it's you or whether it's me, making anybody responsible avoids the troublesome thought that there is some ambiguous nothingness that is responsible that we can't control. Okay. Reality number 2, allocating responsibility is often assumptive and done after the fact, with statements as, you should have, you would have, you could have. Remember those statements I was talking about earlier? When nobody is particularly responsible, we make them, or us, responsible. Reality number 3, we cannot control everything we cannot control everything, so we cannot be responsible for everything. I'm going to read that one more time. That's perfect. We cannot control everything, so we cannot be responsible for everything. Responsibility is seldom a black and white affair. We are more responsible for some things than others. Importantly, we have more control over some things. We cannot be held responsible for things over which we have little or no control. Just that just summarizes everything I'm saying right here. And the last one, number 4, often people are assumed to have responsibilities when they do not. In relationships, for example, a person, okay, this one's speaking directly to me, like we were just talking about. In relationships, for example, a person may be reasonably be expected to be considerate, be cordial, be kind, but they are not wholly responsibility for the happiness of others. I'm gonna like wiggle my ears and circle that one for me. So what is my point after making this 12-minute and 38-second video? Stop beating up on yourselves. Nothing, you are not responsible for everything, okay? You can't assert blame. I know it's scary to not have a person or an idea or a concept to put blame or responsibility or like why does life do this to me? That type of feeling, like we hate that feeling. We would much rather have someone like to blame, and a lot of times it falls on us. So be gentle with yourself. Be nice to yourself. Stop beating up on yourself. Keep an ear out for those personal woulda, coulda, shoulda statements, because those are just fishing for guilt. And what does guilt come with? In our heads, guilt comes with security. That if we have control over these issues, that we're gonna be safe and we're gonna be happy and all will be calm. In a calm place, speaking of which, speculate if you did have responsibility, because sometimes you do, okay? A lot of times you do. We all have plenty of responsibility in our lives. So in a calm place, after the heat of the moment, speculate if you had responsibility to legitimately mend the relationship, mend the issue. Call your boss, call your neighbor. Make peace with the universe for cutting off that asshole on 280, you know? And above all else, be gentle with yourself. We all make mistakes, whether there are responsibilities or whether we tell ourselves that there are responsibilities. We all make mistakes. We're all human. That's what makes us beautiful. The world is harsh enough, right? I mean, it's a beast. And to have an additional internal war to fight, that's too much for us. So I hope that this video finds you well. I made it under 15 minutes. And my dears, with joy, love, and light.